It's California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We are joined today by Tom Frazier. He's a professor at Cal State Long Beach, a professor of geography, and he and I are both fascinated with the geography of Central Europe. I was just in Berlin, sir, and I was reminded that this year is the 25th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. It's amazing how different that whole city looks. I mentioned to you I was there in 1991. So the wall was down, but there were still Soviet soldiers. You could absolutely tell the difference between East and West Berlin. Where were you?
I was in Munich at the time, learning German.
Right.
And I, like many others, watched the dramatic unfolding of the fall of the wall, accidentally,
Right.
as we discussed.
And let's talk about that, because I don't think many of us realize and remember exactly how it happened. Give us a sense, tell us about the moment that caused the wall to fall.
All throughout 1989, there was a series of demonstrations, mostly in other German cities, like Leipzig.
Right, which is east.
Which is in the east, East Germany, their own sovereign state,
Right.
Communist, socialist, however you
Right.
want to apply that. At that time, there was a lot of demonstrations, and people were then going to Czechoslovakia and
Right.
other countries and applying for asylum and fleeing East
Sure.
Germany. So there was an issue. So they decided to allow for some sort of limited travel freedom.
Right.
So Mr. Schabowski,
Who was?
a member of the Politburo,
Right.
the East German Politburo, was at a press conference, and a journalist,
Right.
journalists are always great,
Right.
they ask
Oh,
great
yes.
questions, when will this travel freedom go into effect? And Mr. Schabowski, with his Prussian efficiency,
Right.
looked at his notes, and it was not indicated a date. So he said, I suppose now. So within minutes, people started,
Right.
East Germans, massing at the Berlin Wall and the Brandenburg Gate, and the news spread quickly in West Berlin,
Right.
so they started going to the wall as well. And then the East German guards just opened the gate and let people flow through.
Literally. I
Yes.
mean, it was a moment in time. I'm getting chills because I'm remembering the moment where I was. A friend reminded me, I was in law school at the time and we were watching television, and I couldn't believe it. Now, you proceeded to rush to Berlin, is that right?
Yes, I also watched the events unfold on television live and astounded like everyone
Right.
else. So as soon as I could, I made my way to Berlin. I had been there previously when it was divided, so I was able to travel around there, and I did
Had you
visit
gone into East Berlin?
Yes, I
you
did.
Had. You got a visa?
Yes, foreigners,
Right.
diplomats, and soldiers could cross through Checkpoint Charlie
right.
and have access to a limited area
Right.
within East Berlin as a tourist for a day, and you had to be processed
Right.
and
Oh,
so
yes.
forth. So returning in the early spring of 1990, with an automobile, driving through East Germany, the
Right.
transit and so forth, and everything was just suddenly open, and people were everywhere, and East German cars were everywhere. West Germans were driving, complaining about the roads, of course.
And we need to remember that if you look at a map of Germany, Berlin was and is inside East Germany, and it was a divided city inside of East Germany.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people don't realize,
Right.
that it was a series of islands.
Right.
Berlin, even to this day, is a city-state,
Right.
completely surrounded by the federal state of Brandenburg.
Right.
And it's the federal capital
Right.
as well. And yes, so you had to cross from West Germany, you had to cross into East Germany, and then cross into West Berlin.
Right.
And so a series of checkpoints always.
Now, you, like many, went to the wall.
Yes.
And you started chipping away.
Yes.
And this is a beautiful piece
Thank you.
of the Berlin Wall.
I did not design it.
You did not, but here's the key. There is paint on this piece. Historically, what does that mean? From where did you get this piece?
Okay, I obtained most of my pieces from an area between today Potsdamer Platz
Right.
and Leipziger Platz.
Right.
And there was still quite a bit of wall still standing, because this was a no man's land and it wasn't determined what was going to be done with that land yet. Many pieces of the wall had been broken through with bulldozers, automobiles, and people with sledgehammers.
But the fact there is paint on this, what does that tell us? From which side of the wall?
Absolutely the west side.
Right, explain why.
Because the west was free,
Right.
had social freedoms, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, the wall became a canvas for graffiti art, and political expression.
On the east side, no one could get near the wall.
No, on the east side there was a series of barriers and security measures, commonly known as the death strip.
Oh, literally.
Yes,
Literally.
supported by a shoot-to-kill order.
And several people were shot and
There
killed.
are 27 documented deaths at the wall, many of which after unification, those border guards were criminally prosecuted for shooting them.
Let's talk about unification.
Yes.
I remember there was some nerves around that time. It was only 50 plus years after the Third Reich, and sure, Germany had been repentant for the horrors of World War II, but still, it was only 50 years after the Third Reich.
It was a geopolitical situation when the wall fell. The wall, Berlin Wall, of course, has become a metaphor for not only the Cold War, but the fall of the wall as a metaphor for the end of the Cold War. At the end of the Cold War, there was a series of agreements. They called it the 4+2 agreement. So they had to have the United States, Great Britain, France, also East Germany, West Germany, and Russia, all getting together to agree to allow yes or no that Germany should be able to reunify. And so it was a political decision, and eventually they used the benefits of a federal West Germany, a Bundesrepublik of Deutschland, that was a democratic state firmly embedded into the European Union and NATO. So they used their federal states to add 5 new federal states into the federation. So overnight, modern West Germany, or modern Germany, United Germany, was born, October 3rd.
And here's what's remarkable to me. As I said, I was just in Berlin. West Berlin is lovely and a lot of great shopping and feels very modern. East Berlin is hip and cool and has the great restaurants and the young families, and I was completely taken by East Berlin. I was shocked at how charming it was in such a short period of time. Were there Soviet-style buildings? Some, but you wouldn't necessarily know.
No, there has been billions of euros literally invested into Berlin, not only to remake the federal capital, to build the infrastructure, all the wonderful new autobahns flowing in and out of East and West Germany, and telecommunications and everything else. And then the housing. People flooded into Berlin. Right after unification, there was a housing surplus. And people occupied all these great eastern areas of Berlin with their old housing stock, not just the socialist housing, which even now is in many ways, many of the socialist housing stock have been renovated and
I was in some of them.
Attractive to live in.
They're like New York Loft in a way.
They can be with great views of the city because some can be 16 stories tall. And nice wide boulevards and the public transportation and the like. But it's the older neighborhoods that have first the artists and the young people move in, and then the young families, and then of course it gets into gentrification issues. And right now everything is flipped. So there is a housing shortage in Berlin, and
on the east side, or just
everywhere,
everywhere,
because the prices are now so high.
Although I understand it's still a fairly livable city
compared to London, Paris, Madrid, or any of the big capitals, Vienna. Berlin is a bargain, and you can live in a really nice big old Wohnung or Altbauwohnung or old house or apartment and really have a great life.
Who would have thunk when we were in high school that Berlin would see a day that East Berlin is the magnet for so many Europeans, so many North Americans?
And also, you were mentioning before the interview how there's been a social change, how people perceive Germans, how Germans perceive themselves, and how they perceive themselves within Europe. So it's a process.
You'll come back. His name is Tom Frazier. He is a professor of geography at Cal State Long Beach. My name is Brad Pomerance, and this is California Edition.